Hey guys, Marble Tyler here, and as promised, I do have a video coming out today. We have PUBG is better than Fortnite. So, obviously yesterday we did the video that was Fortnite better than PUBG. What are the reasons? Today we're doing the top 5 reasons PUBG surpasses Fortnite as a game. And again, I don't have bias towards either one. I do play a lot of both. Generally, I'm better at PUBG, and I prefer PUBG, but Fortnite definitely has its appeals. So diving into reason number 5 is the weapons and vehicles. Now, first of all, Fortnite doesn't have vehicles, so PUBG already wins this round in terms of vehicles because being able to drive in a bike or a car or a buggy just adds a different layer of variety. It adds more map traversal instead of having to walk across the entire thing. So it allows you that if you get a really bad drop, but you find a vehicle, you can drive to the next drop instead of having to walk and possibly die, all this other stuff. You can have vehicle battles, which when you get into them, they're really, really fun. And on top of that, there's more weapons. And the reason I say this, there's more like tiered weapons, or there's less tiered weapons. You don't have, the regular, the green, the blue, the orange, and the purple of all the same weapon. You have, just actual different weapons. And on top of that, they're real world weapons. I know PUBGs are modeled off of real world weapons as well, but these aren't just, different tiers, and there's more variety, there's different ammo types, and it focuses less on quote-unquote dumb items. For example, if you're a PUBG fan, you probably don't care for, the idea of having traps or a deployable bush or something like that. It's kind of obnoxious, and I can understand why. Now, diving into reason number 4, there are more maps. So obviously, Fortnite, it focuses on a method of, we're going to have one map, and we're just going to fine-tune it and update it and make sure that map's perfect. And PUBG's maps aren't perfect by any means, but there's multiple maps, there's more variety. There's different settings, so you have the desert map, you have the original, I think it's like Erangel or something like that. You have the original map, which gives you enough variety to, different locations. They are bigger, which does ruin the pacing a little bit, but again, you have more variety. You have, different types of maps, you have different ways to experience the maps, different buildings, different locations. And honestly, I think the added variety is something that Fortnite really needs to look into. They need to see if they can implement more maps. Obviously, there's a third map coming, and that one's going to be even smaller, so hopefully it should fix the pacing. Should be a lot more, get in, get out. It's just a benefit that I think Fortnite hasn't dove into. Yes, the maps aren't perfect for PUBG, and the pacing's a little off, but having more variety is always a good thing. For reason number 3, we have what is the intensity of the final circles. Now, in Fortnite, there's a tendency that whenever, even at regular combat situations, but especially towards the end, you're just going to build a huge, huge base really high up. You're going to be jumping around a lot, and you're going to use shotguns. And generally, that's just what it always comes down to is, using shotguns, jumping around a lot, and trying to just outbuild the other person, just building a ton of cover, or building up so you can get the high ground, so you can get that shotgun headshot. And it doesn't feel intense. It feels kind of arcadey. I mean, in the moment, yeah, it's kind of cool, but it's only so much fun, jumping around and doing the same thing over and over. It gets really obnoxious really fast, at least in my opinion. And I think the intensity of hiding in the bushes and the ground with the foliage and all this other stuff is way more intense and heart pounding than it is in Fortnite when you're just jumping around with a shotgun. And on top of that, there's a lot more, I'm gonna say, skill involved. Not saying Fortnite's not skilled at all. Again, I play both games. It does take a lot of skill, but the balance of patience, accuracy, map knowledge, and then obviously luck from the circle. Yeah, you have, all of those things in Fortnite, but they feel much more prevalent in PUBG, where you don't have to spam building or this or that, this or that. You genuinely have to be patient. You have to hope the circle's on your side. You have to make sure your shots land because the time to kill seems a lot faster unless you're using a shotgun and jumping around in circles. Now, for reason number 2, we have first-person mode. And so this is going to tie in a little bit with like Realism, but the fact that you can play first-person is a huge deal because, first-person shooters are dominating the market, or they're one of the most prevalent games in the market, that is. Obviously Counter-Strike's around, from Rainbow Six Siege, Call of Duty's every year, Battlefield, Halo, all kinds of different games use first-person shooters. Far Cry 5 just came out. It's just the common game these days. And the fact that PUBG is one of the bigger, effective, like actual first-person shooter games that have a battle royale mode, that basically are a battle royale mode, it's a big deal, especially for again, players that aren't going for that cartoony look. And this is going to tie into the last point if you can't guess it by now. But also, just simply aiming down sight. In Fortnite, you can only aim down sight with a scoped weapon. In this game, you can aim down sight with all weapons, whether you're third-person mode or first-person mode. And I think that's a big deal. It adds, again, a little bit to the realism, but it feels like a more advantageous and skillful game mode. Also because you can't peek around cover because it's third person. You're not, viewing people when they can't see you because you're crouched down, but you can still see out the window. That's absurd. It's, again, tying back into realism, but the first-person mode is a big deal for a lot of people. And now you've probably guessed it, but reason number one is just the fact that PUBG is more realistic. Now, the cartoony look is extremely off-putting for a lot of gamers, myself included at first. That's why some people have never gotten into games like Overwatch. Great games, phenomenal, whatever, but the cartoony look will put people off and they won't buy it or they won't play it. Or even if they do have fun with it, it's just not a game they'll come back to because they don't appreciate the cartoony, art style. Not that it's a bad art style by any means, but for a lot of players, this is one of the number one reasons, or this is the number one reason why they prefer PUBG to Fortnite. But even beyond, the art style and the cartoony look, the weapon mechanics, Fortnite you only have the sniper that really has bullet drop. In this game, everything has bullet drop. You have to be able to precisely put your cursor or reticle or whatever you're using on your whatever weapon. You have to very very much precisely land those shots. If you're shooting uphill, you got to take that into account. If you're shooting downhill, if you're shooting distance, different types of weapon, there's a lot more realism in terms of the bullet effects and the way that that affects the game match. Again, there's also no traps or bushes, that you're having to watch out for. There's a reason PUBG doesn't have claymores, because it would be really annoying to watch for traps every time. And Fortnite does have the traps built in from the game, as well as the launch pad to go flying and parachuting again and all this stuff. And that's, again, extremely off-putting to a lot of players. They want that more realistic feeling. And then, of course, the last thing, as mentioned in the last one, every game has ADS, and the fact that the game is almost forcing you to play third person in Fortnite, extremely off-putting for a lot of players. I don't mind it personally, but I know a lot of players do, which is why they generally gravitate towards PUBG over Fortnite. But yeah, guys, this has been your 5 reasons why Fortnite is not as good as PUBG. I almost said that backwards. But check back to STG. I play both games. You'll probably see footage of both games. And we'll see you soon.